Hi there, in this video we're going to start building the RAM. So we're going to start off with an Sr Latch. So let me just draw it out for you. It's going to be implemented using NAND gates. So one NAND gate there, Control D, second NAND gate there, and we'll have two outputs. Okay, that's our outputs, and we're going to have two inputs here. So we'll give the input pins in, we'll give them names as well. So that's two input pins, and we've got two output pins. Okay, now let's give them names. We'll call one S for set, one R for reset, one is Q, and one is NQ. Now NQ just means not Q, so it means that NQ is the complement of Q. So if Q is a 1, NQ would be a 0, and vice versa. Okay, so that's set, that's a reset, that's our Q, and that's our NQ. Now this is an active low Sr Latch. Now it's active low because its natural state, if I can use that term, would be both of them being high. Okay, now I've not actually finished doing the drawing, so I'll finish it off. What we're going to do is we're going to take the output from that and feed it to the input of that one, and the output of this one, and feed it to the input of that one. Okay, so there's a feedback loop there. Okay, so it's an active low, so it only toggles whenever it goes from a high state to a low state. Okay, so that's what active low means. So we're sitting in a high state, and in order for a toggle it must go from high to low. Okay, so let's just do that now. So if I change this, the outputs will toggle, meaning change. Okay, so I'll make that 0. You see the output, that's gone 1 and that's gone 0. Now it doesn't matter what I do with that now, it's retained that value, okay, 1 and 0. So if I again put it back to our high value, then if I toggle the R, I'll toggle it round the other way, so I'll make that a 0 and a 1. So the R toggles it, okay. And then when it's toggled it once, it won't do it again. That's it. That's it set, okay. So that's our active low Sr Latch. Now we could draw out a little truth table for that. Let's have a look, and I've already got it drawn out from a previous video I was making. Okay, so that's good. Let's go in here and I can have a look at that. So this is a truth table here. Okay, for our Sr Latch we looked at. So this is the S input, the R, the Q, and the not Q. These are the Sr inputs 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. So natural state is to be in 1, 1. So in 1, 1, Q is 0 and NQ is 1. Okay, now if the value for S was to toggle from 1 to a 0, the output would change from 0, 1 to a 1, 0. Okay, and then if we were to toggle the again, only this time the R was to toggle, okay, then it would go into a 0, 1 state. So it would jump between these two states, 1, 0 and the 0, 1. Okay, so we've seen that just in the simulation. Now if both of these were 0, both these outputs would be high, and that they would be the same. Now that's not a not allowed state because we want to make sure that these two here are complements. So we say that's a not allowed state. Okay, now I'll come back to that not allowed state in just in a minute. Okay, so that's our simple Sr Latch. Now what we want to do is we can then build what's called a gated Sr Latch. Okay, now let's just bring back up our Logisim, and let me change the circuit here, and we'll shift these back a bit. Okay, delete these off. See, there's an interesting thing. You see it comes up saying it all comes red. These little blocks have come red. There's actually a bit at the bottom saying oscillation apparent. So I'm messing about with this while it was still in simulation mode. Okay, so when I did that, it goes into some it goes into a confused state. So I can reset it if I go simulate, reset simulation, okay, and then you need to simulate, enable the simulation again, so you got that tick there, okay, so that's us back up and running. So if I go Control D, I can take this NAND gate and feed it in here, and Control D, I can take this NAND gate and I can feed it in here. Now we'll take the reset pin and feed it in here. We'll take the reset pin and we'll feed the reset pin in here. Okay, and these two pins will get tied together and it'll go to another pin which we'll call E for enable. Okay, so that there becomes an enable pin. So E for enable. It's awful small that. So let's see if I go back to 20. Right, you can see that there. So it's E for enable. Now, that's a very similar circuit to the previous one, but now by adding these gates here, we'll now change this to an active high latch. Okay, so its natural state would be both inputs being 0, okay, and the output will only toggle from when the input changes from a low value to a high value, so that's why it's called active high. Okay, now it's also a gated latch because it's controlled by this enable pin here, so nothing will happen in the outputs unless the enable is set to high. Okay, so I set the enable to high, then I can toggle the output here by changing S high, so there you go, the output is now changed. Now if I were to make S low again, nothing happens, so it retains that state in effect. And the same here, if I set that back to 0, if I toggle this one, that will become a 0 and that one will become a 1. Okay, so there you go, that's it toggled, and then when I change these, nothing happens because it's retained that state. Okay, so we can draw out the truth table for this as well, and I've got it already sitting there, which was quite handy. That's us there. So again, we've got an S and an R. Now we've got an enable. So I've actually got 8 possible values for inputs. I've only drawn 4 of them because the other 4 are when enable is set low. Now when enable is set low, all that happens is it just retains its previous N and Q value. Okay, so what we're interested in is how everything changes. So if we set enable high, okay, and I say its natural state here is to have the S and the R to be low, okay, and in that case the Q and NQ are 1 and 0, okay, and if it was to toggle the R bit going high, okay, then this would toggle to 0 and 1, and if we did it the other way around about and we toggled the S bit high, it would go to 1 and 0. So again, we're toggling in between these two states here, 0 1 and 1 0, and again there is a not allowed state, so the 1 1 would make both these the same, and we say that's not allowed. Okay, so let's now go on to the next circuit, which ensures that this state here, this not allowed state, doesn't occur. So let's have a look. We'll go back to logism and I'll redraw this out. Now you can see quite easily how we can ensure that this and this will never be the same. I could take a pin for here, a connection from here, and put the NOT gate in, and I'll face it south. Okay, so if I put this into here and then delete off these inputs here, that input there, then that ensures that this here is never the same as this value here. So when this is a 0, that's a 1, when that's 1, that's a 0. Okay, so now we've got a real interesting bit of circuitry now that we can use as a little memory cell. So again, if we set enable high, okay, then this becomes a transparent latch, so it just passes on whatever is in value S straight through to Q. So when I put a 1 in there, we get a 1 in there. When I put a 0, we get a 0. So I can just toggle through that S straight from the input to the output. Now we can use this as a memory cell, because if we want to set that, say, high, we can put the input as high. Okay, so that's it set to high. Whenever we put the enable low, we can no longer pass anything through, so it doesn't matter what I do with this S, that is fixed. It's retained that value for our value Q. Okay, now a simpler way of doing this, we can get rid of this NOT gate, and we can do the same implementation and have the same truth table, okay, but without that NOT gate. So we're saving an extra gate. Okay, so that's what we're going to do just now. So again, I'll just get this in the right setup. Okay, so we'll go to push that forward. We'll delete this here. The input of that now comes from output of this one. Okay, can delete this. Okay, I don't need this or this. I don't need this, and we can take our enable straight in here. Okay, now again, from me messing about with this, it's going into this oscillated state. Okay, so I can again reset that simulation and just enable simulation again. Okay, so if I set the enable high, okay, now what I'll do to simplify things, we're not interested in this NOT Q output. All we're interested in is one output, which is the bit of memory that we're trying to maintain. So if I set that as a high, if I toggle that high, I'll put it in simulation mode, and I toggle that high, you see we get an output. So this becomes, again, it's a transparent latch, exactly the same as the previous one, but we're doing it with only 4 inputs, and also the not allowed state never ever occurs. Okay, so this here is a little memory bit, so let's think about how we're going to use it. What we could do is, we could, if we want to retain a piece of memory, a bit of data, okay, then we could ensure that the enable goes high first. Okay, so the enable's gone high, it's waiting for an input. Okay, the input comes in. Okay, the input comes in, and the enable bit then goes low. Okay, and that is now set. So if our setting goes low, it's retained that little bit there. Okay, so that's in essence what we want to do here. Now, what we'll do is we'll create our first instance here, and it means we don't need to bother looking at this level again. Okay, so we'll be one level further up a hierarchy. So let's just create the instance now. So I'll go into simulate project, add circuit. Now there is actually a box up here there, you can't see it, but whenever you go and run the tool, it will appear. So we'll call this CPU underscore mem underscore 1. Okay, so that's us got CPU mem underscore 1. So we'll go in and we'll grab this instance here. We'll call it, Control X, copy and paste. Okay, so that's us got it in there. Now we could call that, rather than call it Q, we'll just call it we'll call it O for output. Okay, let's say O for output. There we go. That's actually a capital O. Right. Okay, that's me got it now. We'll call it O for output. Okay, so we've got set, we've got enable, and we've got our O for output. So we go to project, and no, we're actually in here already. We'll go in here and we'll right click and we'll edit circuit appearance. So that's us got our little circuit here, and we're going to change the appearance of it. So we'll just redraw it out, something like this here. Okay, so I'll make that 2, and I've got to grab this little pin, so that's the output pin there. Okay, I think I'll make it I'll make it smaller there, then that sits in the centre. So that's our input pin A. You can't quite see it, but I can see when I click on it, the little box, it shows me actually what pin that is. Okay, and we need this here, it gives us the direction of our instance. Okay, so I'll delete that, and I can then give these a name. We can call it S for set, E for enable. Okay, so we can grab these and we'll pop them up here. Set and enable, and we'll call one, call O for output. Okay, and we can give it a name as well. We can call it CPU, oh, capitals, CPU, no, they're too big because it won't fit in the box. Right, CPU, okay, and we'll call it mem1, okay, so mem, and we'll call it 1, okay. Now, I don't intend to go through all of these for every single instance, okay. I just thought I'd do the first couple just to get a gist so you can see how I'm going to build it up, okay. So if I go into main now, I can now choose CPU mem1, I can pop it down, okay, and I can then make an 8-bit. So that's enough for this video. We'll come back and I'll make an 8-bit memory cell, so it's 1 byte, okay, and we'll also start looking at the decoder as well. Okay, right, thank you, goodbye.